So now I think we're in part 4 of the story of how CrossFit Edwardsville got started, and we had gotten to the part where the cast of characters from the park, the cast of characters that had been like the natural outgrowth of our small group at the church, became the first core staff of CrossFit Edwardsville. And Caroline and I had, like taken the leap, made these like major gambles. We thought, in terms of like the finances, because we recently graduated from college and we've got very little like resource to our name and like to begin with, and made these like really scary gambles on getting a expensive commercial facility, on investing in equipment, payroll and all that to make our little CrossFit thing legitimate, to make it a real operation. And what was kind of like the common theme through all of the early days was like Caroline and I were just like a really good 1-2 punch, really good team, and things would just grow super fast. Like the church group grew extremely fast, then the park group grew extremely fast, and we were always super fortunate that we were connecting with really wonderful people like Janelle, like Scott, who would become like really integral to our lives, really integral to the operation of the business as it grew from this completely neophyte thing to something real and legitimate. Anyway, that explosive growth pattern continued when we went into our first commercial facility. So our first commercial facility was right off of a major artery in Glen Carbon, right off of 159, and across the street from IHOP, across the street from some other, some relatively well-known businesses. And we had a ton of visibility, like 20,000 cars a day plus were driving right past our little CrossFit operation. And I just remember like every single like weekend, every single Saturday, there was like 8-10 people in our free intro class, and our first facility was, I think, 2,100 square feet. I think it was 2,100 square feet, and we had taken all of our bars and plates from the park that had been our coffee tables in our apartment. We moved them into the facility. We built our very first pull-up rig from scratch. We just bought raw steel, started welding, started cutting. That was our first squat rack. Everything was just like, on a dime, because that's all we had at the time. But man, like, people showed up, man. People showed up. I remember it was like 6 months into our 2-year lease on the first commercial facility. We were already like capped out in space. Like there wasn't room for us to have all the people who were interested in doing CrossFit in our facility. And it was super exciting and super crazy. Caroline was working as an instructor at the university, and I was working both at running the gym, but I was also working 60 hours a week at a physical therapy operation. And like it was just like life was like just wild, man. It was so 6 months in, we were basically out of space at that facility, and we're like, we need to expand like right now. How are we going to do that? And I remember like I used to, one of my things was I would run on a regular basis, and so would Caroline. We'd do our CrossFit, we'd also run on a regular basis. And there was a place in town that I'd run by that there was this just like large industrial box that a printing company was using to mass print stuff. And the company was Midwest Specialty Printing, and they had this one particular big industrial box type thing, which really stood out in this area because there's very little real estate that matches that description in our area. Very little. Almost everything is commercial. Almost everything is like office space. There's very little like pole barn or what considered to be a traditional CrossFit box. Very few things like that in this area. But there's this one 6,000 square foot place that I would see every once in a while when I do my runs. It's like less than a mile from our first commercial facility. So I remember one day, I just, I was on my run, I ran to that facility, the new one, the bigger facility, and I just went in there and I approached the first guy that I saw, and I said, hey, I'd like to rent this building for my business. Who do I talk to? How do I make that happen? It turned out that he was the owner, and I was talking to the decision maker, and as it happened, he was looking to expand his business as well. Wanted to expand his business to a facility that was like 10 times the size of that facility, which the one that I'm in right now. He wanted to expand from 6,000 square feet to 60,000. So it started a dialogue back and forth, and later that year we signed a 5-year lease on the 6,000 square foot facility, and we moved our entire CrossFit operation, the home-built rig. What we then had was like real medicine balls, real rowers, bars, and plates. We moved it to this facility, our current one, 6,000 square foot facility on Kettle River Drive. But this was another like major and super scary gamble for us to do, because we still had the lease on the other facility. So we're literally paying the rent on 2 different facilities and occupying one. But necessity is the mother of invention, and when there's no other option but to find a way, like succeed or die, people tend to succeed. We found a way. So as I mentioned a moment ago, I was working 60 hours as a physical therapist, outpatient physical therapy with Apex Network Physical Therapy at that time, and also working 33 hours a week in the gym, the growing business, alongside the help of who is now at Coach JJ, working with us all the time, Coach Scott, Coach Jessica, Coach Shane, Coach Caroline, the whole squad. So I was working 93 hours a week building this, and also the physical therapy thing. Well, the solution I was able to think of was that Apex's Edwardsville office, Apex Network Physical Therapy Edwardsville, they were outgrowing their little 1,100 square foot facility, and I persuaded my employer Apex to rent my I-159 original CrossFit facility, the 2,100 square foot facility, to rent that from me and move their operation over. So this is so crazy, but when that happened, it helped us to mitigate the cost of having rent on 2 different facilities, because we'd moved out of the one to the new one. It helped us mitigate the cost, but in that moment I became the landlord, because we were subleasing. I became the landlord to my physical therapy employer, which is really crazy if you think about it. So at that point, I'm a part of essentially 3 businesses. I'm a part of the physical therapy operation, which is my day job. I'm a part of CrossFit Edwardsville, running this business, but I'm also a landlord with a tenant who happens to also be my employer. It was absolutely bananas. You think about it, looking back. But I mean, the thing just kept growing and growing and growing. Our business kept growing and growing and growing. And I remember my son was born in late 2013, August 2013. I remember thinking to myself, when my wife Caroline was pregnant with him, and then in the very earliest days when I was born, and I'm working in physical therapy, and here's my everyday life, okay? Here's the grind that I'm on. So I'm up by 4:30 in the morning, I'm at the gym. I coach the 5 a.m. class, I coach the 6 a.m. class, I exercise at 7 a.m. with Coach Scott. I race home, I shower, I have breakfast while reading my Bible. Then I race off to work. I'm at the PT clinic by 9 a.m. working. I work there until 6:30 p.m. I race to close down shop. I sprint over to the gym in the evening. At 7 p.m. I'm leading the foundations classes. I finish that, I close down shop, I race back home, I shower, I go to bed, and I repeat the next day. It was insane. And straight up like 93 hours a week when you include the Saturdays and the Sundays. It was 93 hours a week that I was working, and I felt like I could sustain that because I felt good. Like, I mean, my nutrition was dialed in by that point. I was doing the exercise, and I was able, by the grace of the Lord, to maintain this ridiculous, furious pace because I'd had, you know, I'd accumulated so much fitness by that point that I could do crazy stuff like that. I knew that it probably wasn't a wise thing, it wasn't a long-term sustainable thing probably. I felt like I could keep doing it, I could keep up, but it didn't seem like a wise choice. So in the next video, I'll discuss a little bit more about how, you know, things changed when my son was born, and then when I left physical therapy and CrossFit became my only thing.